like I never left. Back like I left my keys, you can believe that.
Hey, get high, stay low, go hard, get paid, provide, maintain, no pain, no gain, yeah. Everybody wanna judge, but I never hold a grudge, cause I know they couldn't run in my shoes. Bankroll on slow and the hoes on go, y'all niggas can't do what I do. I done showed a lot of love and I never got it back, and I never asked for it, I'm cool. When you really on the job, like I'm really on the job, getting to it, tell me how can you look? Take a look in the eyes of a legend. Mind over matter, let's fight this depression, let's fight this oppression, fight back with aggression. This come with your heart, I provide all the weapons. Come take a look in the eyes of a soldier. I drop that real and it spread like Ebola. Man, on my word, I don't know what they told ya. I got the weight of the world on my. Let me tell you, everybody know the name. I'm one of one, I'm a god in my lane. The devil up on me, I'm marching in flames. The Lord in my heart, I got my angel names. They talk about me, but look, dreams. They talk about me and the rest of my team. Keeping the G, it ain't always the same. It get complicated like Avril Lavigne. Yeah, top down, scribbling out money and a thing. Boxed out, never let a nigga in my lane. Cropped out, you would get.
Hey, what's good? Peace, world. I'm the host of this thing here, Wood. Feel free to check me out over at bitedownboxing.com as well as roundbyroundboxing.com. Man, I need to stay on my grind early on Saturday mornings or Friday nights. I said I was going to try to be more consistent with doing a live stream. As I mentioned on some of the morning Wood videos in the morning, I hate to really do them like that. But without having 1,000 subscribers, you can't do mobile live streams. And, that's kind of what I got to work with what I have. So I'm going to get into about 4 or 5 boxing topics. I guess they're kind of, I'll run them down real quick. One of them is Gary Russell Jr. He made some comments. I know I had my thoughts out there on Deontay Wilder and, catching a body and catching a body in the ring, catching a body on his record and whatnot, and my thoughts on that. And we also had some, similar comments from Paulie Malignaggi. And then Gary Russell Jr. said some stuff on DAZN. So we'll get into that really quickly. Yesterday I had the Morning Wood. It was actually about whether or not Eddie Hearn was doing enough to make sure or to give it the best possibility that WBC heavyweight champion Deontay Wilder would show up for the fight next weekend, next Saturday. That's Anthony Joshua and Andy Ruiz. Had some thoughts on that as it relates to, and I guess the champ already spoke on that with the clip on 78 Sports channel. So a couple thoughts on that. The 40 days promotional show for Joshua Ruiz is up on DAZN. And it's executive produced by Rock Nation and Meek Mill. And so I've been seeing some pictures out there on that with Meek Mill, and different comments were being made about how Joshua or Matchroom was trying to get some credit or get some credibility for Anthony Joshua. And I don't know, man. It doesn't have to be all that. I don't know. We'll get into that in just a second. Some thoughts on the quality of it. What's his name? LeBron James and his partner Maverick Carter for that with their uninterrupted company. Their entity getting into just basically entertainment. They did the first one for Canelo and Jacobs. They did that one, which I think was 2 or 3 different episodes of that. So anyway, we'll touch on this Joshua 40 days. And then also just some thoughts on Ruiz. I went back and watched the highlights from Ruiz, Dimitrenko, and just some thoughts on him going into next week's fight. Keep those kind of brief. Some housekeeping, man. Check out, like I said, please head on over to bitedownboxing.com. I got this week's Sound for Sound column up. Sound for Sound is basically a play on pound for pound in boxing, and the column is just where I mash up. Is this thing even working? I mash up a something from the world of hip hop with the fighter, with something going on in boxing on the week that I dropped the article. Earlier this week, I think it was Tuesday, was also B.I.G.'s birthday. That's Christopher Notorious B.I.G. Wallace. So happy belated 47th birthday to that brother, one of my favorites, one of the greats of all time. So I put a little shout out in there in the piece to him. But the feature was actually Devin the Dream Haney. And since he fights tonight at MGM National Harbor. And then also the rapper that went along with that was in the song was a joint from back in the day called I'm the Magnificent by Special Ed. So I kept it kind of straightforward this week. No disrespect to the great E40. I am not the biggest E40 fan in some regards. I don't dislike E40. I just never really gravitated towards the slang and the style. Kind of not my favorite style of music and whatnot. But anybody that's doing that thing for 20 years plus, should be respected and understood. So and I'm glad that the Yay area, I think as they call it, I'm glad that they have a representative. And I know that 40 and his crew, really put in the wake of the Hammer era, the MC Hammer era, they were able to add a different, to put a different flavor out there for that area of the country, and represent, hip hop according to the sensibilities up in the Bay Area. So it was no disrespect to him. I'm not familiar enough with 40's catalog to have picked a song from his catalog that would have fit the theme of the Sound for Sound that's out there. So please go check that out. Real quick, man, let me get into the first topic. Gary Russell Jr. So like I said last week, I've seen people all over the place on where they were with Deontay Wilder's his comments about catching a body in the ring. You had people defending it, you had people completely disregarding it. I think I saw a clip yesterday out on YouTube, which was on one of the trending lists or something. Because of what I follow, it pops up on that first panel on my YouTube dashboard, and there was a clip of Hasim Rahman talking about that wasn't representative of a heavyweight champion, etc., etc. Regardless of where you are with it, I think if you got to spend a lot of time explaining what you meant, it's no different from my thoughts on Andre Ward when he had the comment that were ill received amongst Deontay Wilder fans about he wouldn't want to face he wouldn't want to face Tyson Fury again. And then a couple months later, when he was confronted about it, he had to add a whole lot more words and a few more sentences to what he was actually trying to say the night that he sent up the now infamous tweet. And that's kind of the same thing here with this Wilder situation with those comments. If you got to go back and explain it afterwards, you probably could have said something better. But anyway, getting into Gary Russell Jr., he did a sit down with Ak and Barack on DAZN. It's one of the DAZN thumbnails that are out there that you can click on and watch. And he got into, so they asked Gary Russell Jr. about that. I don't know if it was Ak or Barack, but one of them asked him about Wilder's comments. And Gary Russell Jr. went on and said, I don't like that. Gary Russell Jr., put his own spin on it. And he came out and said that he wasn't too critical of Wilder, and he understood what he was talking about, and he knows kind of the Wilder, away from the ring and away from the sport. So it wasn't really that he defended him, but he just said, hey, it's part of the game, and that type of talk has been a part of the game. So then he takes it a step further and has this big setup about what his own desire is for something to play out in the ring for himself, what he would like to do in the ring. And he has this big build up and sets the table for him to say it. And then he says he would like for the referee, however the action happens, he would like for him and his opponent to be several steps or several feet away from the referee. The referee would basically be way out of position across the ring. And Gary Russell Jr. said that he wanted his opponent to be hurt and so impaired that he couldn't have his guard up, and that Gary Russell could just reach back full strength, full extension, full wind up, put everything on a punch, and just catch his man, a defenseless fighter, and see what happens. I think that's how he ended it, was just, I just want to see what happens. And of course, there were the couple of people that do, or those of us that are subscribers to the Zone. The comment or the question was posed to, why didn't anybody say anything about this? The way that people were in an uproar about Deontay Wilder's comments. And then there was also, last week, we had the Paulie Malignaggi situation where he said putting Labov, or whatever the cat's name is, in a coma in the bare knuckle fighting world, which automatically renders that completely unimportant for me. But with regards to Gary Russell Jr., fighters are trained to fight until you're stopped or to the bell. You're really not supposed, that's not a fighter's job to sit back and assess the situation. We saw a couple months ago with Teofimo Lopez getting that finishing left hook on Magdaleno when he was badly impaired and was basically defenseless as he threw that final shot. And I think Lopez even took a look at the ref, and then the ref hadn't stepped in, so he went on and threw the shot. Now, the fight before that, when he had Mason Menard out on his feet, maybe because of the right hand that he threw, he wasn't in position to throw, connect with another left hand or finish up with the left hand. But he let him fall to the ground completely, without another shot. So, but again, fighters are supposed to fight until the bell or to the referee steps in. So for me, this, and it's another thing, it's an art, it's a skill to talking trash, and it's a skill to selling a fight. It's a skill to all that. And I just think, in some regards, I'm glad to see Gary Russell Jr. coming out of his shell a little bit. There was a story out there, I believe it was on BoxRec, where he had a meeting this week with DAZN to see about moving over to there for the next stage of his program. He called some fighters out. He had the t-shirt on that said, "Hey Al, can I get a shot at Leo Santa Cruz?" All of that was going, he was more vocal than what we've really seen Gary Russell be. So, and Russell is one of my favorite fighters out there. And I want to see him do well. So, but again, the comment that he made in the big setup, it really didn't move me that much. I mean, it happens all the time where referees get out of position. I don't know, is it Ray Mercer? Is that Mercer or Burbick? I think that's Mercer, who had the 30-second savage 30 seconds against Tommy Morrison, where the referee was out of position and allowed Morrison to take a hellacious beating. So it happens pretty regularly. So it was really no reason for me to jump on Gary Russell Jr. and say this was inappropriate or whatever. Like I said, it's an art in talking trash, man. And for me, I don't know if Gary Russell's. I've listened to him talk about his payback that he has planned for Lomachenko. I don't know if like I said, I don't know if his trash talk really resonates for me. I just don't. But like I said, for me, that right there, I don't think that really exceeded the. I don't know if I want to use the phrase, the term "what's acceptable," but that really didn't turn me off too much. I mean, you should be punching with all your might. You should be looking to close the show. And so long as the action is going on, you should be looking to hurt that man. So that was kind of my thoughts on that, man. Another thing before I move on to this next topic is, I think for those of us that watch a lot of YouTube and watch a lot of boxing on YouTube, I think if you give DAZN a chance, there's a lot of content out there across the board too, and it's not just DAZN fighters. It's a lot of content being put out that's boxing related, and it actually has the professional touches on it in terms of the editing, audio. I mean, they're growing though. I mean, all the stuff is kind of improving. I mean, some of the stuff that Ak and Barack are doing is gradually getting sharper and sharper. But I'm just saying, it's more to the platform than just tuning in on a night like tonight, where they have. I think they do have some action over there tonight, don't they? Like I said, I wasn't really breaking down any fights tonight, so I could have swore it was somebody over there though. Maybe tonight, yeah. I can't think of who it is. Anyway, moving on. Let me get on off of this one. I think the next thing I had to talk about yesterday, let me find this real quick. Where'd it go? I know I put them on here. Anyway, with Deontay Wilder, yesterday's Morning Wood. I put some. It wasn't really groundbreaking stuff. It wasn't trying to have the final word on what should happen between next Saturday in terms of Eddie Hearn trying to advance the negotiations to get the big heavyweight fight that everybody likes. I was merely suggesting that I didn't really disagree with Eddie Hearn's comment. It was just a tweet that I read. But Hearn said that he thought an invitation had been sent to Deontay Wilder and to attend Joshua Ruiz at Madison Square Garden. And my opinion was just that the stakes are so high and the situation is what it is. Why wouldn't you know? It's your promotion. We know the history of this whole thing. We know we know the magnitude of the fight that's trying to be made. That's what it is. It's in National Harbor tonight on DAZN. The Devin Haney card. I was like, I knew something was out there. But what's on the line. I was hopeful. I was optimistic. And I was thinking that coming off of a big win, a highlight that went viral, all the progress that was gained for Deontay Wilder and boxing itself with the knockout of Dominic Breazeale last Saturday night on Showtime Championship Boxing. I guess I was naive enough to think that you could take a moment and reset everything. And this is nothing dissimilar to what I've heard AJ say himself in a sit down. I believe it was a sit down with Akin Barak, where he said himself that we've had some missteps. My side, my team, we've handled this poorly. We've made some mistakes. And I just thought this right here presented a moment, like I said, to reset things and make sure that the invite was out there. And I'm not saying that Wilder had to accept it. I'm not saying that that anything beyond that. Just put your best foot forward, try to negotiate it and make moves in good faith, and let's see what happens. So I put that out there yesterday to mixed reactions. Some people misunderstood what I was trying to say. Okay, that happens. But I checked out 78 Sports, I believe it was a video of his speaking with Deontay Wilder last week, and I got my answer there. That Deontay Wilder said he responded that he had a lot of stuff going on. He built up a lot of a real significant buzz from last week's knockout, based on it going viral, and he said he didn't think he had a chance to. He didn't think he had a chance to make it. He didn't think he had the space on his schedule to fit it in, and I think that's fair enough. Again, if so long as DAZN / Matchroom Boxing / Eddie Hearn, and maybe on behalf of AJ, as long as that invite was sent out there and they made a good effort to make it happen, then I'm cool with that. And if Deontay, I think that's a good look for the public to know that. And then on top of that, if Wilder wants to decline that invitation, as he's apparently done, okay. I mean, they tried. He did joke around a little. Wilder did joke around a little bit in the response, kind of leaving it open-ended. But I do think now that if he wanted to get in the ring after the fight, if Joshua is successful in defending his titles, I do think if he wanted to get in the ring, that would have been allowed. I feel like this whole situation with Matchroom and Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua having to come to America, I feel like it's a new day for them. They understand now that us sitting up on this perch, us sitting up at this summit looking down at everybody, that might not play anymore. It's probably not gonna play. Even if you are as big as you think you are, moving forward to get this last belt to make this unification fight, you probably gonna have to come down and go along. What is it? Go along to get along, more so than I'm way up here and everybody else is my subjects. That's probably not gonna work. And so I think all this could have been talked out, and it would have just. And lastly, I think I had that written down. For the counter argument out there to be that, AJ didn't attend Wilder in Brazil. I think that would have been ill-advised. He has a huge fight coming up next Saturday against an opponent on 5 or 6 weeks notice. He probably spent a week or two preparing in general, which we'll get into that 40 days thing here as the next topic, but just preparing in general, and everything that's all the stakes that are on the line for him, all the pressure and everything that needs to happen, with more pressure being put on with the outcome of last week's fight with Wilder in Brazil. I really think it was understandable that they sat that one out. Now I would go back. I did say back in before Wilder and Fury, I did have the opinion that AJ should have attended that fight. I knew that they weren't. We already knew what the position of Matchroom Boxing and Joshua and Eddie Hearn. We already knew that they wouldn't. But again, I thought it would have been a good look for them to be there. They didn't have a fight on the schedule at that period of time. They did have the offer sitting out there for the April 13th date. And with Joshua holding the 3 belts and coming off of the win against Povetkin, I thought it would have been good for the sport and good for the negotiations. But obviously they tried to downplay the significance of that fight. They tried to downplay, Tyson Fury and his heavyweight lineal champion status. And that's what I'm saying, what I was saying with yesterday's Morning Wood. All of that stuff is in the past. All of those errors, all of the mishandling is in the past. Could everybody have gotten on an accord and came together next week and tried to move things along? But, like I said, the answer was right there on 78 Sports video. And I don't foresee Wilder making it over there to attend the fight. And we'll see. We'll see. Moving on to this next topic. Man, I forgot to load something on here is what happened. Where was I at? The next topic was this 40 days clip. I ain't load that either. Oh. Yeah, the next topic was this 40 days clip. It's kind of all access 24/7 from HBO, the HBO days. It's their way of, it's just their pre-fight promotion, behind the scenes, limited series that they're putting out here to accompany some of their bigger fights. We had the first one for Canelo and Daniel Jacobs, which was, like I said, that was put together by LeBron James and Maverick Carter and their uninterrupted entertainment entity. And I thought they handled it well for being new to boxing, new faces to boxing, and being new into the production, TV production game. I thought it was fairly decent. Looking at this one, this is executive produced. I believe Eddie Hearn is an executive producer. Meek Mill is credited on there as an executive producer. And then Rock Nation is credited as, being an executive producer of the clip. It was a little disappointing. And I think it starts with the arrival of Anthony Joshua in Miami in the U.S. to finish up his final preparations for next Saturday's fight with Andy Ruiz. And, it starts with the Under Armour private jet pulling in to the airport. And I don't know if they showed him deplaning or not. But, it quickly just moves into the subject being on camera. Some different writers speak. I think Dougie is on there from Ring TV. Michael Woods is on there. Gareth Davies is on there. I might be missing one other two, but the coach, a couple of people from the AJ boxing team, a couple of them had some sit downs and say some stuff. But the one thing that disappointed me was we didn't see anything from Andy Ruiz. We didn't see anything from his camp. Now, if that happened because the situation with him being a late ad, maybe they didn't have time on this first one to logistically to just get a team out there to video stuff, to record Ruiz wherever he is doing his preparation. I guess that's a function of that. And that's unfortunate. But I do think if there is another one that's planned maybe to drop this week, and with Rock Nation being involved, if that's their thing, it should have, in my opinion, they should have been able to get a team. I could have understood a little bit more so if it was Matchroom putting together the film crew and all of that. But Rock Nation should have been able to adjust on the fly and make sure that some kind of limited footage was out there to include from the Ruiz camp. But I guess on the back end of it, how much do you really, how far do you go or how hard do you go to make sure Ruiz is on there when people may not? Well, actually, this is going to DAZN. It's probably on DAZN's YouTube channel. It probably is. I can check afterwards. But I was gonna say, if it's only content that's available on DAZN, then maybe you don't worry about appearing to have dropped the ball and not having Ruiz on this thing. But just getting into it real quick. Trainer Rob McCracken says a couple of things. They show I thought they might have been at Miami's 5th Street gym, but it looks like they might have just put together they might have made a makeshift gym that they went and set up for a couple of weeks. And good. All right, it's back. Yeah, it's not that's dope if you have the resources to come over and do that. And just, I think they had 2 rings in there. Basically all of the necessities to conduct a boxing training camp. They showed AJ out doing some road work. The one thing that I noticed, and we've all been complaining about or making note of him being a bit stiff, him being robotic, just in his natural walk, his natural stride as he's walking, or his gait, whatever they call it. Even though he's 6'6" is something, that's on the taller side of things, but he's looking at it, he's almost comparable to what's his name to me, from the NBA, Kawhi Leonard. Leonard Leonard probably is 20 pounds or so lighter than Joshua, about the same size probably. I mean, the same height. I mean, but Leonard is not the most fluid moving guy, in my opinion. And JJ is even worse than him. But like I said, just watching him run, just watching him do some. I've watched some different training videos on Instagram and online and whatnot. He's a very robotic guy. Now, in my opinion, conversely, in contrast, Deontay Wilder is not the most agile heavyweight, in my opinion. But he's got a different set of a different kind of rigidness to him. But he can move better on his feet, though, on his toes. I'll give him that. I definitely give him that. But and maybe he's a thinner guy with the stick legs and whatnot. The arm reach, I believe it's only a difference in arm reach between the two guys, but not nearly the same amount of mass, on the shoulders, on the biceps and everything, or in the thighs and calves. I mean, so he's got a stiffness in his movement too. But AJ is just really is much more noticeable. One comment that was made surprisingly was journalist Gareth Davies. I think he writes for the Telegraph, maybe. I think was who I don't read too much of his stuff, but I've seen the name before. I'm pretty familiar with him. But in his sit down, he actually mentioned that, there are several serious questions that remain about Anthony Joshua at the elite level in boxing. And I thought he was getting ready to talk about the chin. But I don't know if he went there with it. But I just thought that was pretty honest that they included that statement in there. A couple of guys mentioned, and they were from the inner parts of the AJ boxing team. They mentioned that AJ is the best finisher in the game. And I think that's just not true. That's just not a true statement. Maybe, I guess, from the perspective that AJ is good and excels in setting up the finish and maybe finishing a little more under control, a controlled finish. I guess you could say that. That is a lingering criticism out there on Deontay Wilder about how up until this last fight, up into the Brazil knockout, which if we saw a flash of it, but definitely with the Gerald Washington win, finishing off Stavern in the rematch, Wilder Stavern 2, we saw the windmill action and the wild swinging and some of that stuff. But I guess if you want to go in that regard, maybe the AJ boxing people that made the comment that he's the best finisher, I guess you can get that off. But I don't know if that's, like I said, one punch knockout, go to Wilder. If you want to say finisher, I would say he's a good finisher, a solid finisher. But and I mean, as thin as the heavyweight ranks are and kind of amongst the major players that we're seeing right now, I guess he might be the number one finisher. But I'd still like to see more KOs versus TKOs. But that's neither here nor there. Also on this episode of 40 Days is a sit down with rapper Meek Mill, who I just mentioned was credited with some executive producer credit credited as an executive producer on this project. I saw some of the criticism, from fans stateside, that even, the inclusion of somebody like Meek Mill, isn't going to help with credibility. It's not going to help sell you to the U.S. It's not going to help you take over the U.S. For me, his inclusion in the whole thing, it was maybe a 3-minute segment where he was a part of it. I don't know if I really, not much of a takeaway from me. Joshua mentioned that he thought it'd be good to hear his story, hear his struggle, hear the things that he's overcome to be where he is, and so on and so forth. They talked about giving the importance of them giving back to the community, the importance of what their stories represent to the community, that the communities that they come from. Was it a reach? Maybe. Maybe. Meek Mill really didn't have any boxing commentary per se. I think he mentioned something about I think he asked one question about fighting, but mainly it was just Josh was saying, I think the only thing that the real parallel that they had was performing in front of fans. Obviously two much different types of performances. So like it didn't accomplish a whole lot for me, but for some people that need to see they need to see the BS, maybe it worked. But again, I mean, if the man is part of the production, is part of the circle behind bringing the project to fruition, I guess he has the right to sit down. But again, I just think sometimes, man, in doing what I do, whether it's writing, whether it's sitting here, whether it's doing the podcast, the audio only podcast, whether it's doing the live stream, again, not everybody is really that interested, in my opinion. And it's just because somebody might be a former athlete, or because they're a rapper, or whatever, you just can't put them in any situation and it produce some real gold, in my opinion, that's really appealing to people. As I sit here with, watching myself, the only one viewing this on YouTube, so, hey, everybody can do what they want to do, especially when you have the resources to, to tackle and get the green light to do such a project such as that. You do it how you want to do it. But I don't think his inclusion didn't really bowl me over. And like I said, hopefully on the second one, Andy Ruiz, they get some time, hopefully in the last week and a half or so in Ruiz's final preparations, they had some time to get a team out there so that some of us can get to know Ruiz. I'm really not that familiar with Ruiz and what he did on Top Rank. But I'll get to that here next with the highlights that I saw of him and Dimitrenko. So let's get to that real quick. Actually, There was nothing to get to. I didn't have an image for that. But yeah, so looking at Ruiz and I didn't see the Ruiz Parker fight. I don't know if that's really gonna change my opinion too much. I might have some downtime later this week. It's a long weekend. I might be able to watch the Parker and Ruiz fight. On the 40-day clip, a couple of the guys who were speaking on there made note of the fact that Ruiz is a better opponent. I think it was Dougie from Ring Magazine. He made the brief argument that Ruiz is actually a better challenge than Jarrell Miller, who we all know was had to withdraw because of the 3 failed PED tests. I don't know. I think this, being a week out now, I think right now the buzz would be a little bit better if Miller was still involved. I don't know. It's probably splitting hairs between the two. But checking out Ruiz against Dimitrenko, I think one thing that's going to be a great detail for me to focus on is obviously with last week's knockout from Wilder, the knockout of Dominic Breazeale. We're going to need this. This will let me know whether, how, I mean, it gives me an idea. It gives me an idea of how AJ and the movement that I was just talking about a few minutes ago, the stiffness, the not being really agile and not being too spry on his feet. We need to see how he handles the look that Ruiz is going to give him. Ruiz is going to bring some, he's going to try to get into his chest. He's going to try to get off some combination punches, volume punches and bunches. The fight's probably going to use the whole ring. And while it's a completely different look than what we would see in Wilder versus AJ, I really need to see what AJ does with a spirited opponent in front of him. A little bit more so than what we saw from Povetkin. This guy is hungry. Ruiz, I expect him to be hungry. I expect him to be shooting his shot 100%. And so, like I said, it doesn't give us apples to apples. It doesn't. Doesn't nearly have the punching power of Deontay Wilder. But, like I said, it is going to allow me to see. It's going to require a certain level of aggression. I don't want to see nothing about no finesse boxing from AJ, especially coming on the heels of the knockout that we saw last week. I think he's going to need to be, to have a real presence in there. I think we're not going to see a similar knockout. I just don't foresee that happening. So it's basically, AJ is being credited as the more skillful fighter, the boxing technician, more tactical. All of those things are what's being the boxes that are being checked for AJ. So I just need to see how that gets applied to a guy like Ruiz and everything that he's going to bring. Learning what we learned last week. You definitely, and that's the thing with Joshua, even looking forward to that fight if it ever does happen, when it does happen. Being outside, lingering or loitering, that's out of bounds. Being inside, being mid-range, loitering, that's out of bounds. We're going to need to see, this is a way for me to see if AJ can actually come forward in an effective manner and, push an opponent backwards, get him on the back foot, and go to work a little bit better. I know he's done it at times, but sometimes he's been reluctant to really go inside and put himself in harm's way. But I think if we're gonna watch, if we're gonna see Wilder and AJ, and he's not gonna be able to do that, then in my opinion, it could be ugly. It could be ugly because there are definite out of bounds areas with in that fight. It just is. And now I don't expect I wouldn't expect AJ to be that foolish to get caught with the right hand that Brazil got caught with last Saturday. But we definitely need to see some more movement from him. I want to see what weight he comes in at. I want to see what kind of weight Joshua comes in at next Saturday, and how he looks at that weight, what his movement is like, what his agility is like. And then, of course, we need to see getting into that 4th through 7th round in that area in there. We need to see what his stamina is looking like. So it's some things to gain from this fight. Again, I looking at what Ruiz was able to do against Dmytrenko is the one fight that I've watched so far. I don't see him being able to replicate that with the same level of success. But definitely it's probably going to make Joshua have his hands more active and more adjustments from him. So, and then we also need to I believe I saw where Hearn mentioned that the reality is now, if I read that correctly, again, it might have just been a tweet, but it's like the reality is now that fight one with Wilder, that the first fight probably has to happen in the States. I thought that's what I saw him mention, that fight one would happen in the States. Fight two, a rematch would be set for the UK. So with that being said, how does Joshua come over here and perform? And it's a lot of pressure on him right now. Tons of pressure on him right now. You can't lose to a guy you're not supposed to lose to. You can't lose to a guy you're supposed to lose to. You have the big knockout last week, and you're trying to do something as stellar, as scintillating, something that could possibly go viral. See how I flipped them first three letters around, rival and viral. But it's a lot of pressure on him, and he's got a hell of a task in selling himself to U.S. fight fans for a number of reasons. And last week's display by Wilder didn't make that sales job any easier. So any misfire, any delayed, anything is going to be over scrutinized, highly scrutinized. That's just the facts of the facts here. So what's up, bro? Love your green screen setup. I need to get on it. What's up, World Breaker, man? Good. Thanks for the comment. We can talk offline. It ain't what you might think it is. It's really not that. It's no green screen involved. But we can do that later. I'm getting ready to get on off here, actually, though, man. But yeah. So hey, fights tonight. I didn't really get into Ito and Herring. I'm really not that familiar with Ito. I mentioned this earlier in the week on one of my Morning Wood clips. I didn't go back and watch that Ito Diaz fight. I know Ito had him down a couple of times. I think right now with Top Rank, we're seeing a lot of Japanese fighters. The Monster is a phenomenal fighter. I'm kind of getting an eye and a feel just now myself for kind of like what Japanese boxing is all about. And I think one area where these guys having and it could show up tonight with Herring. It won't be the same type of pressure that Shafikov put on Herring. Definitely don't foresee that being the case. But Japanese fighters, as a culture, Japanese people are very disciplined. And it's going to be a struggle. I mean, and Herring is not one of the guys out here living foul in between camps and whatnot. So we can count on him to put forth a good effort. It's just, can he outbox this man? Can he hurt him? Can he get the W? So I think that's kind of in my opinion, it's a 50-50 fight. I'm pulling for Herring. I think it's solid marketing on behalf of ESPN to put this whole put a fighter with Herring's background, a military, former military service member, and a former Olympian. I don't know if you read the Mark Kriegel piece out there that said ESPN and whatnot, but they did their thing with it. Now I see what World Breaker was talking about. Let me take that down since I moved on from that topic. But anyway, oh yeah, and then lastly with I'm not too familiar. I missed the fight with Moran and Pedraza. So I'm gonna go check that out before fight time. I got a little party to go to here in about 2 hours. So I'm gonna try to check that Moran in. Moran and Pedraza fight out. Pedraza fights tonight on that Herring card. So it's some good mid-level action tonight. You know, Haney's Thunder and Matchroom, his partnership with Matchroom Boxing USA and Eddie Hearn, you know, hit a little, got tripped up a little bit with the, with the WBC title being being placed out there for the winner of Lomachenko and Luke Campbell. So, hey, it happens. But look, man, let me not try to extend this unnecessarily. Enjoy the fights tonight. I mean, I think it's a good look if we have a lot of barbecues and whatnot going on and families gathered. And if it's some family members that do like boxing, it's an opportunity for the sport to continue to get put in front of people. I think, I don't know if that game 6 is out there tonight with, or is that tomorrow? With the Raptors and the Bucks up in Toronto. But hey, again, let me get on off of here, man. Appreciate anybody who comes back and checks this out after it posts. Feel free to leave any comments and, hit that like button. Consider becoming a subscriber. I'm going to try to be more dedicated. I got to stick to either Friday night or Saturday morning if I'm going to do this thing. But again, thanks for rocking with me. You know how I end everything. You don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. Peace.
It's it, fuck that. It's it, fuck that. It's the one. It's the one. Live by the club, ride with the gun, live for my queen, die for my son, drinking my cup, smoking my lungs, the life that we live, get off fear none. I look around, the city I'm from, the places we've been, the spots that we hung, and it ain't the same, but we don't complain, but make no mistakes. I ride with the mob, cause I stay with the drum, bitch I don't fear none, me and my OG. No OG, put cushion my lungs, gotta stay focused, keep both eyes open, cause where I'm from, niggas hopeless, they'll blow shit, they don't know shit. I ride with the mob, cause I stay with the drum, bitch I don't fear none, me and my OG. No OG, put cushion my lungs, gotta stay focused, keep both eyes open, cause where I'm from, niggas hopeless, they'll blow shit, they don't know shit.
That's pretty crazy, Ominous.
What should I
you following a man around.
The highway with the wind in my back, blood in my eyes, tears in my yak. The nigga that you met, same nigga in my raps. I hit the road with minimal luggage. I came with killers if I'm in the function. I'm moving gorillas and all of it's thugging. They ask where we from, straight out the jungle. They want my demise. I think it's funny, yo bitch on my line. Pussy get punished, you know I'm a ride. That road it get rugged, unlimited vibes. I'm rising above it. I know where I'm headed. Straight to the money. You play with my niggas, my family, my money, and shit it get ugly. I do what I want to. You do what you able. You looking for slicko, you know where I'm going, I'm straight to the paper. I put the food on the table, cause that's all I ever knew. I Don't put no bitch on no pedestal. I got too much on my schedule. Live by the call, ride with the gun. Live for my queen, die for my son. Drink in my cup, smoke in my lungs. The life that we live, get all fear none. I look around, city I'm from, the places we've been, spots that we